Hey guys, in today's tutorial I'm going to cover a very essential visual effect, the humble muzzle flash. If done right, a good muzzle flash effect can enhance almost anything, from the look and feel of your standard gunshots, a gun-crazed maniac, your cameraman, camera loves you baby. Hell, it can almost make your breakfast cereal taste better.
Concluded that in all cases, the killers are eating the flesh of the people they murdered.
Knowing how to create a convincing muzzle flash effect is an essential and very fun skill for any visual artist to have. Let's jump right in. For this effect we will composite several layers. First, we will place the muzzle flash on top of our base footage. We then create a lighting layer and mask up all the areas in the image that will receive lighting from the flash. However, just placing the lighting layer over the footage looks kind of flat and unrealistic, so we're going to create a matte to make the lighting layer blend more naturally with the scene. Finally, and this is just for personal style, we can add some colorization to the footage. Now, let me show you how to do all of this in After Effects. As you can see, I already have a composition created and I've placed the base footage Toby shoot in it. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to find the exact spot where the gun is being fired, which is probably about here where the slide is moving back. Next, I will take my muzzle flash element and place it on top of this layer and position it right in front of the gun. Now, I'm using stock footage from the Action Essentials pack, but you can find free stock footage online and I've included a few links in the description of this video. Once you've positioned the muzzle flash, just change the blend mode of the layer to screen. The other thing I'd also like to do, I usually like to add a little bit of glow to the muzzle flash just to intensify it and blend it a bit better into the scene. For this, go to Presets and Effects and search for glow. Now, take the glow effect and drag it onto the muzzle flash layer. I usually like to increase the radius a little bit just to make it a little bit softer and not quite so artificial, but play around with the parameters and use whatever feels natural. Next, we're going to add the lighting layer. For this, select New and Solid. Now, for the color of your solid, you usually want to pick something that is very similar to your muzzle flash. You can name your layer whatever you want. I'm going to call it Gun Lighting, and then click OK. You want to change the blend mode of your new layer to Additive and lower the opacity to around 20. Next, you have to think about which parts of the scene would be lit up by an actual muzzle flash, and you will have to create masks to highlight all those areas. I'm going to speed this up a little bit. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm creating masks for both of the walls, my face, as well as the front of my hand that is facing the muzzle. Then I'm going to increase the feather amount and reduce the opacity of some of these masks just so that it's not quite as harsh and unnatural. The other thing I want to do is I want to use the subtractive masks for underneath my arm and my right shoulder because that area would not be in light if there was an actual muzzle flash in the scene. Now, this doesn't look too bad, however I still find that the lighting kind of sits on top of the scene, especially on my face rather than in the scene. To remedy this, we're going to use the matte for the lighting layer. To do this, select the base footage layer and press Ctrl D to duplicate. Hold this layer like matte and drag it to the top of the composition. Now, there are three things you need to do with your lighting matte. First, you need to desaturate it, which you can do with the hue saturation effect, simply by turning the master saturation down to 0. Next, add the brightness and contrast effect to your matte. You can do this simply by double-clicking on the effect in the Effects and Presets panel. Now, when adjusting the brightness and contrast, keep in mind that the brighter the image will be, the more light it will receive from our lighting layer. The last thing I like to do is just to add a fast blur to the matte, just to soften out the lighting effect a little bit. Usually a setting of around 10 or so is actually quite sufficient. Now that we've created the light matte, the last thing we have to do is turn off its visibility. Then, go to the gun lighting layer and under Track Matte select Luma Matte. Selecting Luma Matte means that wherever our light matte layer is brighter, the gun lighting layer will be more visible. Wherever the light matte is dark, our gun lighting layer will be less visible. If you have a look at the lighting effect, you can see that it is sitting a lot nicer in the scene rather than just being on top of it. The very last thing we have to do is animate the opacity of the lighting layer. I usually set the opacity to around 20 at the moment of the muzzle flash and within about 2 or 3 frames fade it down to 0. Now remember to set the frame just before the muzzle flash to 0 so that it jumps instantly from 0 to 20 and you get that nice flash effect. Render it out and your muzzle flash effect is complete. I hope today's tutorial has given you a few tips on how to enhance the look of your muzzle flash effects. As always, if you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below. And in next week's video, I'm going to show you how to complete your gun effects by adding realistic looking bullet impacts. Until then, I will see you later.
Centuries has taught that there is an external God whom we shall serve. Whereas I think the truth is that God is within, and that the answer to our questions is within. We believe that good and evil are human concepts. The life-giving force is a form of energy, and all energy can be used for good or bad. Electricity can be used to light a room or to kill. Water can be used to sustain life or to drown. And what man does with the energy is what is really meant by free will.
Edgar Allan Poe quote, "Somewhere in the human mind is the key to our existence." That's what I believe. I don't think there's anything religious or anything to do with it. I don't believe in an afterlife or anything. But I think there are things in here which we haven't tapped. We only use a really small percentage of the brain's potential.
For decades, life in Lancashire has revolved around the mills and the church. The mills have gone into dereliction, and the churches are slowly decaying, and the community has disappeared. For most of the kids around here, they feel cheated by the world of their parents, and unfortunately Christianity has nothing more to offer them. It's let them down in a lot of ways. As a result, paganism, the Stonehenge type of thing, has now become their rallying cry, in a way, a cry of their rebellion.
Of Christianity are exposed. Christianity simply does not know how to cope with the idle mind, with the unemployed mind, with the new leisure.
Today, with the economic depression, there seems to be a lot of idleness, a lot of unemployment, a lot of time on people's hands, and it's the old story, I think, of the devil providing activities for idle hands.
The devil finds work for idle hands to do, but whose fault is it that we're sat here twiddling our thumbs? We didn't ask for this situation at all. And if there was work for us to do, we would do it. But sitting on our bums, like at home with nothing to do, you start using your mind, and why not?
I think that as plastic civilization encroaches, and as more and more man-made scabs cover the earth, that people are beginning to realize that they are not plastic people living in a plastic civilization. They are flesh and blood people. Whereas before, they may have taken their earth for granted. Now, because it is disappearing, they're feeling lost.
We live in a godless, almost an artificial age. We've created it over the last 200 years. Man's the center. If you can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't touch it, then it doesn't exist, and it's a world which is not satisfying man in the least.
Well, I think that the whole artificial scene has given rise to a backlash, a return to paganism. You're getting all sorts of experimental forms coming up, all sorts of groups or cults trying to revive the spirit of paganism, which are becoming increasingly aware of their roots, and are attempting to get back to them.
Among those groups are the practitioners of chaos magic, for whom the old religions have a new relevance.
More and more people today are feeling alienated from the civilization which has lost its mystery and its meaning and seems to be sort of bent on an ecological or a nuclear disaster course.
And not only are the traditional political solutions unlikely to provide a solution to the catastrophe this planet seems to be heading towards, but that religion is intimately tied up with this, and that Christianity is in fact just another facet of paternalistic, authoritarian politics, and always has been.
And Christianity seems to be offering no better option than sitting back quietly and accepting it and waiting for something better to happen hereafter. It seems a little more positive to hope that you can plumb your own depths and find some meaning and fulfillment while you're actually here, and we like to think that we offer that.
After all, if you are a born-again Christian and you really do believe that come a nuclear holocaust you'll be swept up in the rapture to heaven, then you really won't be doing that much to stop it. In fact, you'll rather be looking forward to it. I think that sort of a more pagan or occult worldview tends to be a life-supporting and life-enhancing worldview, which is better than the predominantly sort of, which I see as more sort of death-orientated worldviews of the born-again Christians.
You've become a Christian. What have you got now that you didn't have before?
Freedom. Witches have got nothing. I mean, Christians are far way above them. My God doesn't need Ouija boards, and he doesn't need bits of paper with pictures on them. And my God doesn't need crystal balls. My God is that great.
Sadly, the Reverend Logan's vision of a cross on Pendle Hill has been dashed by the local planning committee on the grounds that this would constitute a new development.
My name is Daniel Scott West. I am Atomic Frog Productions. I just went to see my probation officer today and found out that they're changing a federal law in town that they can identify. I mean, this is fiction, right? The probation office indicated to me that they're looking to change a federal plea. After I signed it, changed the definition from not guilty to no contest. So they're trying to change the definition of Alfred, who is Henry Alfred, who was convicted of murder and sent to prison. His case became a federal case as soon as he was in prison. As people entered the prison that were guilty of the crime that he was accused of, they were given. He was brought back to court but this time on the federal court level. Henry Alfred was found not guilty on the federal level after all who were guilty of the murder. I mean, this is Crow 3 sort of situation, right? All who were guilty of the murder were already in prison. So my case with Mary Hansen is exactly that. I identified in court already as I signed documents. They want me to re-sign documents as they change the definition. I found that out this morning when I walked down to the probation office across from the courthouse. I'm hoping that all my friends are safe. I know how hard it is in there. Kidnapping is a federal crime. It's an act of war, act of treason. What's going on here? And overriding the federal constitution, attacking the federal constitution, a declaration of war. They've already done that. Any documents I sign from this point on, all the way through court, are a signature as witness. Ironclad contracts that attack the federal government, that attack state laws, are void immediately. So anything, if the offer was to sign as a sex offender, which I am not guilty of any sexual crimes. So that's the only offer they give me. They're playing their own little government game, and it's these are laws that are set in place by the federal government that they're trying to redefine. They're hoping that they could push it all at the state Supreme Court, separating from the United States, basically. And that is an international crime. I mean, human trafficking is, we talked about this on Atomic Voice, human trafficking is something that's going on here in Missoula. Drug trafficking is going on here in Missoula, and weapons trafficking is going on here in Missoula. I mean, I'm at MCAT, Missoula Community Access Television. For any information about producers, you must contact Joel Baird or Christian Ackerman, who are staff employees that work here. Find me here most often than not. If I'm not here, I might be at Free Cycle, or I might be at the library. But yeah, that's all I got right now. We're at the end of the storm, I believe, because with all the movement going around, misinformation, re-edification, identification, all that other stuff. As long as you know your federal laws, you can move slowly, or you can move along with the paces. If you're not in control of your situation, it's less than two evils. You have a dictator that's running the show. You're opening the door, slowing things down. You got to do something, but when it's over, it's over. I mean, embrace the darkness, live in the light. For those who are still suffering, yeah, I mean, that's all I got right now. Atomic Frog Productions, copyright 2001, Daniel Scott West, signing off. I wanted to say thank you to Barack Obama. I'm glad I voted for you. Capitol Hill for setting up laws, for signing laws, making things are solidified, and so things move properly. For all the states that are still suffering this situation, I'll do what I can to facilitate my brain, whatever I can do, through poems, through stories, through all that other stuff. Anything I can do to stabilize and unify this country. All the street generals like Manuel Emblem, Taj Bo, Christian Ackerman are on this as well. I will get through this. It's not a hostile takeover because we don't let it be. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Woo woo.
It's coming. There's no escape. On Halloween, the veil between this world and the next will lift. And then, all hell breaks loose. People have been scaring each other for as long as there's been a Halloween. But how long is that? Where does it come from? And why do we put on disguises and carve jack-o'-lanterns? To indulge our darkest fears? Unlocking the secrets of Halloween means discovering how it all began thousands of years ago. So lock the doors, dim the lights, and don't be scared as we dig up the real story of Halloween. How can you describe Halloween without sounding insane? Masked children come to our doors and threaten us. In return, we give them candy. But why? Why do we carve faces into fruit, then light candles inside them? And why do we adorn our homes with coffins and tombstones? The truth is, we take great pleasure in scaring ourselves to death.
Halloween is about being someone else. It's about getting outside your own skin. And I think we tolerate it because we know it's one night.
This impulse to confront our fears of life and of death and make sport of them, it's ancient. And so are our treasured Halloween traditions. When did Halloween begin?
And its ancient origins go back to the old Celtic calendar. And the old Celtic tribes divided the year between a light half and a dark half. And Samhain, their ancient holiday, was a precursor to our Halloween. It was the beginning of the dark half.
Thousands of years ago, the Celts, one of Europe's early tribes, celebrated their Samhain harvest festival with bonfires on the night of October 31st to welcome their new year. For ancient peoples, harvest was a matter of life and death. If crops failed, people starved. Death was always close.
The harvest time could be a scary time. The days are getting shorter, the nights are getting longer. There may or may not be enough food to last through the winter, so I think this is where this nightmarish quality possibly comes from.
It was a bit of a warning. You know, it's going to get cold and dark. Gather together, come home, and don't send anybody out alone in the dark.
But the Celts believed there was even more to Samhain.
What marked Samhain and this transition from light to dark was that time and space became permeable, flexible. And so that spirits not only of the dead, but of the past or of other realities could sort of wander into our reality, and humans could wander out and get lost in the other world as well.
The veil between life and death was at its thinnest, and the living and the dead could commingle. And that's at the root of all the Halloween celebrations.
Stories persist of people on Samhain night getting trapped in the other world, and of the dead appearing among the living. But the truth is, we know precious little about Samhain. We can only guess that their bonfires likely drew one familiar Halloween icon, a thing familiar yet frightening to many: the bat.
Before there was electricity, the only way you would have seen a bat would have been by the firelight. And in fact, you probably would have seen it around the fire because bats eat insects, and insects are attracted to the light.
Bats come out at night, and nighttime was scary time. So if bats are the best and baddest part of your Halloween, you might just credit ancient people like the Celts. And they weren't the only ancient culture with creepy traditions. Others also looked to their dead.
Many cultures sort of set aside a day or a couple of days to ritually celebrate and recognize the dead. An interesting thing is that you find a lot of them at about the same time period, especially in agricultural societies, because if you think about it, spring things come up out of the ground, they're very green, you harvest in the middle of the summer, and towards the fall and when it gets towards winter, things die.
But how did these ancient traditions survive into our modern era? In Western culture, they were preserved by, of all people, Christians. In a bizarre twist of history, as Christianity spread, it adopted and reimagined pagan folkways rather than try to stamp them out. This made it easier to convert pagans. A key pagan festival destined to get a Christian makeover was Lemuria, when celebrants placated the dead, culminating on May 13th.
Of all the different days that they have in the Roman calendar to celebrate the dead, it was the spookiest. So on the Lemuria, what are called the larvae, the ghosts of the departed, would come up and haunt people.
To quell the dead, pagan Romans poured milk onto their graves or offered them little cakes. But the Church co-opted Lemuria in 609 AD, turning May 13th into All Saints' Day, a day to honor the most holy of dead Christians.
Setting aside this day was an attempt to Christianize this very pagan festival, and yet at the same time what it did was it kept a lot of the same themes going.
The Christianized version of Lemuria was such a success that church leaders made a decision that eventually gave rise to Halloween. They moved All Saints, or Hallows Day, to November 1st to drain the life out of pagan Samhain. Because Samhain fell on the night of October 31st, before All Hallows Day on November 1st, people started calling Samhain All Hallows Evening, the evening before All Hallows Day. This shortened into All Hallows Even, and finally, into Halloween. And then, to be safe, the church went one step further, adding a holiday to honor not just saints, but everyday Christians. November 2nd became All Souls Day, a church-sanctioned holiday to honor the departed.
This is real important for Halloween because this is where Halloween gets its association with dead souls, death, and the supernatural again.
So thank the church for inspiring the creepy essentials of Halloween. But wait, there's more. The church also helped establish the tradition of trick-or-treating, sort of. It all started during the Middle Ages on All Souls Day, when priests told Christians to pray for souls trapped between heaven and hell in a netherworld they called purgatory.
Purgatory was not a pleasant place. It's not hell. It's not as bad as hell is, but it's still probably pretty fiery. Souls are kind of suffering there. Luckily, there is something that you could do. You could offer up prayers for them.
How did souls get out of purgatory? According to the church, if enough prayers were offered, a soul would fly up into heaven. This led to a medieval custom that bears more than a striking resemblance to our modern trick-or-treat. Children would go souling, begging for soul cakes, spiced cakes filled with raisins. In return for these treats, the beggars would offer up prayers for souls trapped in purgatory. While this forerunner to trick-or-treat became a preoccupation for medieval Christians, so did another future essential of Halloween: witches.
It made perfect sense for people in medieval times to believe that there were demons and witches. And if there were demons and witches and they were responsible for bad things in the world, it made sense that you hunt them down and you kill them. That was their worldview.
A witch panic in the 16th century helped establish the look of the character that, for many, epitomizes Halloween. Almost always women, witches were seen as in league with Satan.
They were probably the healers who had cures and folklore and passed down orally through generations. And at some point that becomes very suspicious for whatever reason to the religious people around them. And a lot of the symbols that were associated with these women, who probably often lived alone, may have been somewhat eccentric, of course, end up becoming associated with witches.
Over time, as more and more women were accused of witchcraft, their practical kitchen tools acquired sinister dimensions and became model Halloween icons. Even something as mundane as a broom became an instrument of evil, as well as handy transportation. Another accessory in every witch's lair was perfect for brewing devilish potions: the cauldron.
Cauldrons become very popular. Again, it was something that every household had in medieval ages. It was your basic cooking implement.
The pointed witch's hat was a variation on a medieval countrywoman's hat. And of course, the mysterious lurking killer with the glowing eyes, the cat.
It's not surprising that cats are associated with witches and Halloween. Cats can be a little enigmatic. You don't really know what's going on in their head. Also, they used to hang out near the hearth and by the brooms, so they became associated with witchcraft and with Halloween.
Black cats and witches, graveyards and ghosts. The spooky elements of America's great Gothic holiday were taking shape. These ghoulish icons would soon make their way to the New World, where they'd help create the extravaganza we know today. Bonfires, worshiping the dead, begging for treats. The elements of our modern Halloween were haunting Europe at the dawn of the 17th century. But they hadn't yet collected into a spooky, secular holiday. History would now start consolidating them and give life to an odd celebration of death.
It's death that makes this holiday. Whether it's the threat of death if there is a bad harvest, the end of one order or the beginning of a new, this idea of the endless cycle of life and death and renewal is part of a lot of holidays, not just Halloween.
This period saw the continued influence of one of Halloween's most colorful icons, the mask. It often appeared in tandem with another Halloween tradition, destructiveness. Rowdy beggars at All Hallows Eve also guzzled their share of alcohol, and demands for food and drink became more threatening. Masks helped hide their identities. These boundaries between the living and the dead, and between society's rules and anarchy, were tested as day turned to night on All Hallows Eve.
In Britain, they got into some very particular forms that involved dressing in costumes and going house to house to present these little plays. And at the end of the performance, they would be rewarded with food and sometimes money.
Was this trick or treat? Not quite, but the resemblance was there. In 17th century England, many of these customs survived only in rural areas, but they would soon turn up in the city streets, thanks to a pro-Catholic terrorist named Guy Fawkes. On November 5th, 1605, Fawkes tried to blow up London's House of Lords with 36 kegs of gunpowder.
Guy Fawkes was tried, found guilty, and hanged. And according to legend, his body was then drawn and quartered, and the pieces were thrown into a fire.
The next year, on the anniversary of the failed plot, and every year that followed, the children of London mocked the memory of Guy Fawkes by causing chaos in the streets, parading, begging, and building bonfires. Today, all over England, this is called Guy Fawkes Day, or Bonfire Night.
Now, Guy Fawkes Day fell on November 5th, which is very close to Halloween, so a lot of the energy that was focused on Halloween sort of shifted toward Guy Fawkes Day.
While it wasn't our Halloween yet, it had all the signs.
Hi, welcome to Star Schmucks. Oh, crap. What the fuck? Before you throw acid in my face, I'm only working here part-time.
What happened to the art modeling?
I'm still doing that, but my hours kind of got cut because all the artists are in their fat phase. So I have fewer sessions.
You're fat.
My tits are fat, but the rest of me is somewhat normal. They want girthier women.
So, plump up.
Dude, I'm not going to deliberately gain weight to get more hours.
So you'd rather work at this corporate hellhole of death?
Well, actually, with the amount of tips I'm making, I'm kind of breaking even with the modeling hours I lost.
What? How is that possible?
Cleavage!
Cleavage?
Yeah. Apparently, men don't have a problem throwing a 20 into the tip jar when I wear a low-cut shirt.
Lame!
Tell me about it. You figure in this economy, the last thing people would waste money on is some cheap peek at coffeehouse cleavage.
How much did you make in tips today?
Around 150. But I haven't counted since the morning coffee rush.
Damn! People are stupid!
Psh, in this economy, I'm not going to complain. Frankly, I'm thinking of showing up in a bikini tomorrow.
You know, don't ruin coffee with boobs. Don't ruin coffee with boobs.
Trust me, boobs don't ruin coffee.
Yeah. So you'd be fine buying coffee from some half-naked chick with fucking huge tits just falling all over the place, all up in your face.
Dude, I would lick the coffee off her tits if I could.
What is wrong with you?
I don't know. I'm sexually all over the place for some reason. One day it's dicks, next day it's tits, sometimes chicks with dicks. I'm very fickle. Very, very fickle.
You know, why don't you just hook your nipples up to a car battery and put an end to it all?
Are you gonna order a coffee or what?
No, I don't think I will.
Then fuck off out of here, you rat bastard!
Don't expect a tip!
There's plenty of tips out there, fuckface. I am so worth a $20 tip.
No, you're not!
dear beloved. We are having the most wonderful time. The trenches are decorated with flowers and pleasantries. I hope you get well soon. With love from the Great War.
Ow, Daddy, that really hurt. Help me, Daddy. Daddy, I'm bothered.
You'd better have a good reason for all this rumpus, Mr. Branches.
Daddy, look what happened to my end bits, Daddy.
Oh, someone's got a poorly. We'll have to get some bubble trumps and vinegar on there before it falls off.
I'm cold out here, Daddy. I'm cold.
Well, you'd better get a move on and start growing out of those branches if you want to come inside.
That's not fair, Daddy.
Oh! I feel my day of reckoning may be approaching. I suppose I'd better alert the correspondents. Bring help briskly. Mother always said the scarlet fever would be my final departure. I've yearned for this day. I never thought she would arrive. Bottles, nappies, smiles and wee. To my heart you found the key. Baby, Yvonne is born today. The angels say she's here to stay. Ah, you've got your mother's eyes. And she was a fair maiden too, make no mistake. I shan't be able to attend the war today, as I am still feeling a little under the weather. Heavens to Betsy, what now? You're supposed to be doing your exercise, Yvonne. A lethargic child is a servant to the beast. Heads, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. Heads, shoulders. I'm going to be jolly cross with you in a minute. I think we've been given a duff one, Marjorie. My condition is worsening, Yvonne. I'm afraid caring for you might be out of my current grasp.
Ah, that's a shame. You were doing a first-rate job.
I'll make some appointments. Home needed for meddlesome child. Good old Auntie Bainbridge has agreed to take care of you whilst Daddy is enfeebled. She'll make a fanciful young gentlewoman of you, and she'll have you in farming. Now, did you remember to pack your trestle table? Well, it's too late to go back now. Auntie Bainbridge. Now there's a rosy rascal. Give us a hug, you old dame. I remember you'd sing me a shilling's worth and then smack my bottom raw for being a fussy fidget pot. All in faded days. Well, I'm just here to, clean your windows. That's right. I think I must be. Them's a bit mucky, missus. Should be one for Saturday lads, really. Don't qualm, mind. I'll chuck you this'n for note.